So we've had a bit of a disappointing update on XDefiant yesterday, and I wanted to go over with you guys all of the details about essentially a delay of the game and why they have delayed it internally. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. And while you're at it, if you are interested in general gaming stuff as well, be sure to check out the new gaming channel, Sammy Boy Gaming, where I will be doing a setup tour once we do hit 1k subscribers. But with that being said, let's get stuck into all of the details. Now, we all know that XDefiant was meant to be launching in the summer, which has now come and gone, unfortunately. But Mark Rubin did mention it was not too far away in his last update on the game, which probably happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Well, after a bit of time away, the only thing we really heard about was the public test session, which took place about 2 weeks ago now, and we haven't really heard anything on the launch of the game since then. Well, Mark Rubin just tweeted yesterday, and it was quite a long one, so I'm going to read that out for you guys to give you all of the details you need to know. He said in his tweet, "We just had a quick test of our PTS, public test session, server infrastructure, and I want to thank everyone who took part in the test. These servers will be used when we are live to test and get feedback of new content coming through the game, so you may see new factions, new weapons, new modes, etc. We will adapt as needed to make sure the game is aligned with player expectations. And thank you so much to everyone who filled out the survey and provided feedback on our various social media platforms. From this feedback, we saw the majority of people had a great time and saw an improvement over previous tests, but that wasn't the case for everyone. And so we've spent the last week digging through the data that we collected and have identified some things that brought us to the decision to take some extra time to fix or improve the experience for everyone. I also want to point out that all feedback is not only extremely welcome, but crucial to our goal of making a great game. We really do listen to everyone's feedback no matter who you are, and I hope that comes across even if the team and I can't respond to everyone all the time. A great example of feedback from the PTS test was around movement feeling off, in particular that the slide felt nerfed or clunkier. Nothing had changed in that part of the game, but because people brought it up to us, we were able to dig deeper and find that the slide was being interrupted by frame spikes. So again, this might not have been something we'd ever see through normal testing, so thank you again for the great feedback. I know it's a bummer that we are moving the date, especially since we seemed so close, and that for many the game is great and they can't wait to play, but I'd rather ship a game that is better for everyone. Our intent for this game is to be something that players can return to for many years, and to do that we have to build this game with the community. So keep an eye out for future updates and info on the game and its launch. Thank you all again." So obviously that is some, I guess, fairly disappointing news in terms of just hearing about a delay. Although delays are generally a good thing, I don't think anyone wants to hear about delays, because obviously, especially with this game that doesn't have a release date and it has meant to be sort of coming out for a few months now, it's been essentially in limbo to where we all felt that it could have been launching like next week at any given point throughout those 2 months. So it's almost like going into each week, we're all thinking, oh my god, this could be the week that XDefiant launches because there's no release date, and it felt very, very close. And to now have it properly delayed, it is a little bit more frustrating in this situation, I think, than if they actually had a release date of, say, the middle of October that we'd all known about for ages and then they delayed it. I think that would be a little bit less frustrating than the current situation. Now, the first thing I want to say, and I've kind of touched on this a fair bit when it comes to talking about XDefiant, the transparency here is really good from Mark Rubin. I think he is really good when it comes to just keeping us all updated. This is the type of thing, especially with the fact that they don't have a release date, that they could have just kept it quiet, because that is what a lot of companies out there do. They don't update their player base on stuff like this, and they just essentially keep everyone in the dark because legally they don't have to actually say any of this stuff, and it becomes very, very frustrating as a player or a fan of that game. Well, Mark Rubin has done the complete opposite. He's constantly updating the player base, and although the last few updates haven't been necessarily good ones, I would rather be hearing bad things about the game than hearing nothing at all, because at the end of the day, at least we know roughly what's going on, and we can sort of set our expectations because of that, rather than just being completely left in the dark to where some people are going to be really positive and some people are going to be really negative, and none of us know which is the correct way to sort of feel about the game. Now, with the transparency side of it aside, I do think this is also still very frustrating. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm always all for delays. If something is not right with the game, I want them to get it right. I want the game to launch well. And if Mark Rubin and the team are so certain that they need to delay the game, then fair enough. It will probably result in a better game. And at the end of the day, that is what we all want. We want a good shooter that launches well and is a strong game throughout its live service. With that being said though, though, from all the playtests that I've done so far in terms of the beta and then obviously the public test server that was live, like I said, a few weeks ago, the game has felt really, really solid in all of them. Even back in the beta, it felt really, really good. And that was like months and months ago now. And in the public test server, it did feel even better. It felt ready for me. It felt like it could have launched that day and it would have been in a really, really good state. And so it does have me slightly concerned that although, like I said, delays are a good thing, sometimes delays can be because they're chasing perfection. They want the game to be absolutely perfect before it launches. And unfortunately, that will never happen. As Mark Rubin essentially even said in this tweet, that a lot of this stuff they wouldn't have found if they didn't do that public test server. And so if they just continue to delay the game and they keep working on it, even if they just do a public test server every month or something, there is still that chance that, you know, they're going to think the game's perfect and it's still going to launch with issues, because until, you know, the masses get their hands on it, a lot of those issues are not going to be found out. So I do think there is a certain extent to where delaying the game constantly is actually not going to help at all. At that point, you're just chasing perfection. No game in the history of video games has launched perfectly. Every game ever has had bugs. That is just a fact, and every game in the future will have bugs as well. If you don't get the game into players' hands, then like Mark even said in this tweet, a lot of them you are never ever going to find. And so at that point, all you're doing is just constantly delaying the game. It will eventually just never launch, and it's still not going to be perfect either way. So like I said, I do think that overall the delay is potentially a good thing. And as I said, I'm not going to complain and be like, oh, they're trying to make the game better. Like, that's a good thing. I want the game to launch well. But for me, it feels as though it is in a really, really solid state. One little issue, like the slide feeling a bit clunky, that is the type of thing that you can fix when the game launches. You don't need to keep delaying the game for the slide animation. That is a very small thing at the end of the day. And again, maybe there's more that they needed to fix. I'm not too sure. That's why, even though Mark has been really transparent, more transparency is probably even better, because if we know all the things they're looking at, that might make us a little bit more understanding. But the only thing we have to go off is him talking about the slide. And like I said, is it really worth delaying a game for a slide animation? I'm not too sure. The whole thing has got me thinking, and keep in mind, this is just my own little theory, but it feels as though they are essentially just trying to avoid Call of Duty. We know that Modern Warfare 3 is launching in November, pretty much exactly a month from now. And realistically, it's a pretty decent idea to just delay the game and avoid Call of Duty, because that game is the highest selling game every single year. This one will be no different. And potentially it is a good idea to delay the game until 2024, maybe like January or Feb, and avoid the initial Call of Duty hype, to where at that point people will be getting bored of COD. We all know that the game launches, it's really fun for a few months, and then it just dies every single time. That is the never-ending cycle of Call of Duty at this point. And so if they actually launch during that window where Call of Duty is kind of falling off, that may be another really good thing for XDefiant, where that actually drives a lot of people to play it, because a lot of people will be getting sick of Call of Duty, especially when it comes to the skill-based matchmaking. And then what do you know, there's this new free game that plays really well and it's got no skill-based matchmaking and is launching in January. A lot of people might jump on that. So that is just a theory, obviously, and they would never come out and say, no, we're going to delay the game because Call of Duty is coming out. They would just never ever say that. But I definitely think that would have been considered internally. Whether that is the actual reason for the delay, who knows? But either way, it is probably a smart thing, as much as it does suck that, you know, we kind of thought we could be getting XDefiant in the next couple of weeks, and now unfortunately it may be months until we actually get our hands on the game. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this one. I just wanted to fill you in on all of the news around the game. Unfortunately, this does affect the content side of it, so I'll obviously still be covering XDefiant, and any news that we get, I will be making videos on that. But unfortunately, because the game isn't going to be out, I will probably still be focusing on Battlefield and probably even a bit of Modern Warfare 3, which isn't really a bad thing. I'm still enjoying Battlefield 2042, especially now that Season 6 has launched, and then I'm also keen for Modern Warfare 3. So it's probably a good thing for me in terms of the fact that I just get to play those games as well as then playing XDefiant when it launches. But for those who are keen on XDefiant content being the focus on the channel, unfortunately that is going to have to wait a little bit. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.